China, officially the People's Republic of China in Asia, is the world's most populous state, with a population of over 1.381 billion. The state is governed by the Communist Party of China based in the capital of Beijing. It exercises jurisdiction over 22 provinces, 5 autonomous regions, 4 direct-controlled municipalities, 2 mostly self-governing special administrative regions, and claims sovereignty over Taiwan. China is a great power and a major regional power within Asia, and has been characterized as a potential superpower, covering approximately 9.6 million square kilometers. China is the world's second largest state by land area, and either the third or fourth largest by total area, depending on the method of measurement. China's landscape is vast and diverse, ranging from forest steppes and the Gobi and Taklamakan deserts in the arid north to subtropical forests in the wetter south. The Himalaya, Karakoram, Pamir and Tian Shan mountain ranges separate China from South and Central Asia. The Yangtze and Yellow rivers, the third and sixth longest in the world, respectively, run from the Tibetan Plateau to the densely populated eastern seaboard. China's coastline along the Pacific Ocean is 14,500 kilometers long, and is bounded by the Bohai, Yellow, East China, and South China Seas. China is a cradle of civilization, with its known history beginning with an ancient civilization, one of the world's earliest, that flourished in the fertile basin of the Yellow River in the North China Plain. For millennia, China's political system was based on hereditary monarchies known as dynasties. Since 221 BCE, when the Qin dynasty first conquered several states to form a Chinese empire, the state has expanded, fractured and reformed numerous times. The Republic of China replaced the last dynasty in 1912, and ruled the Chinese mainland until 1949. When it was defeated by the Communist Party of China in the Chinese Civil War. The Communist Party established the People's Republic of China in Beijing on 1 October 1949, while the ROC government relocated to Taiwan with its present capital in Taipei. Both the ROC and PRC continue to claim to be the legitimate government of all China. China had the largest economy in the world for most of the past 2,000 years, during which it has seen cycles of prosperity and decline. Since the introduction of economic reforms in 1978, China has become one of the world's fastest-growing major economies. As of 2014, it is the world's second-largest economy by nominal GDP and largest by purchasing power parity. China is also the world's largest exporter and second-largest importer of goods. China is a recognized nuclear weapons state and has the world's largest standing army and second-largest defense budget. The PRC is a member of the United Nations, as it replaced the ROC as a permanent member of the UN Security Council in 1971. China is also a member of numerous formal and informal multilateral organizations, including the WTO, APEC, BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the BCIM and the G20. Etymology. The English word China is thought to have been originally derived from the Sanskrit word China, which is translated into the Persian word Chin. China was first used in early Hindu scripture, including the Mahabharata and the laws of Manu. The word China itself was first recorded in 1516 in the journal of the Portuguese explorer Duarte Barbosa. The journal was translated and published in England in 1555. The traditional theory, proposed in the 17th century by Martino Martini and supported by many later scholars, is that the word China and its earlier related forms are ultimately derived from the state of Qin, the westernmost of the Chinese kingdoms during the Zhou dynasty, which unified China to form the Qin dynasty. Other suggestions for the derivation of China, however, exist. The official name of the modern state is the People's Republic of China. The common Chinese names from the state are Zhongguo and Zhonghua, although the state's official name has been changed numerous times by successive dynasties and modern governments. The term Zhongguo appeared in various ancient texts, such as the Classic of History of the 6th century BCE, and in pre-imperial times it was often used as a cultural concept to distinguish the Huaxia tribes from perceived barbarians. The term, which can be either singular or plural, referred to the group of states or provinces in the Central Plain, but was not used as a name from the state as a whole until the 19th century. The Chinese were not unique in regarding the state as central, with other civilizations having the same view of themselves. History. Prehistory archaeological evidence suggests that early hominids inhabited China between 250,000 and 2.24 million years ago. A cave in Zhouqudian exhibits hominid fossils dated at between 680,000 and 780,000 BCE. The fossils are of Peking man, an example of Homo erectus who used fire. Fossilized teeth of Homo sapiens dating to 125,000–80,000 BCE have been discovered in Fuyun Cave in Dao County, Hunan. Chinese proto-writing existed in Jiahu around 7000 BC, dating even from 5800 BC to 5400 BC. Damaidi around 6000 BC and Banpo dating from the 5th millennium BC. Some scholars have suggested that the Jiahu symbols constituted the earliest Chinese writing system. Early dynastic rule. According to Chinese tradition, the first dynasty was the Jia, which emerged around 2100 BCE. The dynasty was considered mythical by historians until scientific excavations found early Bronze Age sites at Erlitou, Henan in 1959. It remains unclear whether these sites are the remains of the Jia dynasty or of another culture or from the same period. The succeeding Shang dynasty is the earliest to be confirmed by contemporary records. The Shang ruled the plain of the Yellow River in eastern China from the 17th to the 11th century BCE. Their oracle bone script represents the oldest form of Chinese writing yet found, and is a direct ancestor of modern Chinese characters. The Shang were conquered by the Zhou, who ruled between the 11th and 5th centuries BCE. Though centralized authority was slowly eroded by feudal warlords, many independent states eventually emerged from the weakened Zhou state and continually waged war with each other in the 300-year spring and autumn period, only occasionally deferring to the Zhou king. By the time of the Warring States period of the 5th–3rd centuries BCE, there were 7 powerful sovereign states in what is now China, each with its own king, ministry and army. Imperial China. The Warring States period ended in 221 BCE after the state of Qin conquered the other 6 kingdoms and established the first unified Chinese state. Qin Shi Huang, the emperor of Qin, proclaimed himself first emperor and imposed reforms throughout China, notably the forced standardization of Chinese characters, measurements, length of cart axles, and currency. His dynasty also conquered the Yu tribes, incorporating the Lingnan area into China. The Qin dynasty lasted only 15 years, falling soon after Qin Shi Huang's death, as its harsh legalist and authoritarian authoritarian policies led to widespread rebellion. The subsequent Han Dynasty ruled China between 206 BCE and 220 CE, and created a lasting Han cultural identity among its populace that has endured to the present day. The Han Dynasty expanded the empire's territory considerably, with military campaigns reaching southern Korea, Vietnam, Mongolia and Central Asia, and also helped establish the Silk Road in Central Asia. Han China gradually became the largest economy of the ancient world. The Han Dynasty adopted Confucianism, a philosophy developed in the spring and autumn period, as its official state ideology. Despite the Han's official abandonment of legalism, the official ideology of the keen, legalist institutions and policies remained and formed the basis of the Han government. After the collapse of Han, a period of disunion known as the period of the Three Kingdoms followed. The brief unification of the Jin dynasty was broken by the uprising of the Five Barbarians. Nevertheless, the ethnic integration in northern China was achieved with the drastic Sinicization policy of Emperor Shao of the Zhao dynasty Northern Wei. In 581 CE, China was reunited under the Sui. However, the Sui dynasty declined following its defeat in the Goguryeo-Sui War. Under the succeeding Tang and Song dynasties, Chinese economy, technology and culture entered a golden age. The Tang Empire returned control of the western regions and the Silk Road, and made the capital Shanghai a cosmopolitan urban center. However, it was devastated and weakened by the Anxi Rebellion in the 8th century. In 907, the Tang disintegrated completely, with the local military governors being ungovernable. Finally, the Song dynasty ended the separatist situation. As a result, the balance of power appeared between Song and Canton Liao. The Song was the first government in world history to issue paper money and the first Chinese polity to establish a permanent standing navy, which was supported by the developed shipbuilding industry along with the sea trade. Between the 10th and 11th centuries, the population of China doubled in size to around 100 million people, mostly because of the expansion of rice cultivation in central and southern China, and the production of abundant food surpluses. The Song dynasty also saw a revival of Confucianism in response to the growth of Buddhism during the Tang, and a flourishing of philosophy and the arts, as landscape art and porcelain were brought to new levels of maturity and complexity. However, the military weakness of the Song army was observed by the Jin dynasty. In 1127, Emperor Huizong of Song and the capital Bianjing were captured during the Jin-Song Wars. Remnants of the Song retreated to southern China. In the 13th century, China was gradually conquered by the Mongol Empire. In 1271, the Mongol leader Kublai Khan established the Yuan dynasty. The Yuan conquered the last remnant of the Song dynasty in 1279. Before the Mongol invasion, the population of Song China was 120 million citizens. This was reduced to 60 million by the time of the census in 1300. A peasant named Zhu Yuanshang overthrew the Yuan dynasty in 1368 and founded the Ming dynasty. Under the Ming dynasty, China enjoyed another golden age, developing one of the strongest navies in the world and a rich and prosperous economy amid a flourishing of art and culture. It was during this period that Zhang He led voyages throughout the world, reaching as far as Africa. In the early years of the Ming dynasty, China's capital was moved from Nanjing to Beijing. With the budding of capitalism, philosophers such as Wang Yangming further critiqued and expanded Neo-Confucianism with concepts of individualism and equality of four occupations. The scholar official stratum became a supporting force of industry and commerce in the tax boycott movements which, together with the famines and the wars against Japanese invasions of Korea and Manchu invasions, led to an exhausted treasury. In 1644, Beijing was captured by a coalition of peasant rebel forces led by Li Zicheng. The last Ming Chongzhen emperor committed suicide when the city fell. The Manchu Qing dynasty then allied with Ming dynasty general Wu Sangua and overthrew Li's short-lived Shun dynasty, and subsequently seized control of Beijing, which became the new capital of the Qing dynasty. End of dynastic rule. The Qing dynasty, which lasted from 1644 until 1912, was the last imperial dynasty of China. As a conquest dynasty, it successively conquered the Ming loyalists and the Dzungar Khanate, adding Mongolia, Tibet and Xinjiang into the empire, and strengthened the centralized autocracy to crack down on anti-Qing sentiment. The Heijin and the ideological controllers represented by the literary inquisition caused social and technological stagnation. In the 19th century, the dynasty experienced Western imperialism following the First Opium War and the Second Opium War with Britain and France. China was forced to sign unequal treaties, pay compensation, open treaty ports, allow extraterritoriality for foreign nationals, and cede Hong Kong to the British under the 1842 Treaty of Nanking. The First Sino-Japanese War resulted in Qing China's loss of influence in the Korean peninsula, as well as the cession of Taiwan to Japan. The Qing dynasty also began experiencing internal unrest in which millions of people died. In the 1850s and 1860s, the failed Taiping Rebellion ravaged southern China. Other major rebellions included the Puntaga Clan Wars, the Nayan Rebellion, the Miao Rebellion, the Panthay Rebellion, and the Dungan Revolt. The initial success of the self-strengthening movement of the 1860s was frustrated by the series of military defeats in the 1880s and 1890s. In the 19th century, the Great Chinese Diaspora began. Losses due to emigration were added to by conflicts and catastrophes such as the Northern Chinese Famine of 1876–79, in which between 9 and 13 million people died. In 1898, the Guangxu Emperor drafted a reform plan to establish a modern constitutional monarchy, but these plans were thwarted by the Empress Dowager Cixi. The ill-fated anti-Western Boxer Rebellion of 1899–1901 further weakened the dynasty, although Cixi sponsored a program of reforms. The Xinhai Revolution of 1911–12 brought an end to the Qing dynasty and established the Republic of China. Republic of China on 1 January 1912. The Republic of China was established, and Sun Yat-sen of the Kuomintang was proclaimed provisional president. However, the presidency was later given to Yuan Shikai, a former Qing general who in 1915 proclaimed himself Emperor of China. In the face of popular condemnation and opposition from his own Beiyang army, he was forced to abdicate and re-establish the republic. After Yuan Shikai's death in 1916, China was politically fragmented. Its Beijing-based government was internationally recognized but virtually powerless. Regional warlords controlled most of its territory. In the late 1920s, the Kuomintang, under Chiang Kai-shek, the then principal of the Republic of China Military Academy, was able to reunify the country under its own control with a series of deft military and political maneuverings, known collectively as the Northern Expedition. The Kuomintang moved the nation's capital to Nanjing and implemented political tutelage, an intermediate stage of political development outlined in Sun Yat-sen's Sanmin program for transforming China into a modern democratic state. The political division in China made it difficult for Chiang to battle the Communists, against whom the Kuomintang had been warring since 1927 in the Chinese Civil War. This war continued successfully for the Kuomintang, especially after the Communists retreated in the Long March, until Japanese aggression and the 1936 Xian incident forced Chiang to confront Imperial Japan. The Second Sino-Japanese War, a theater of World War II, forced an uneasy alliance between the Kuomintang and the Communists. Japanese forces committed numerous war atrocities against the civilian population. In all, as many as 20 million Chinese civilians died. An estimated 200,000 Chinese were massacred in the city of Nanjing alone during the Japanese occupation. During the war, China, along with the UK, the US and the Soviet Union, were referred to as trusteeship of the powerful, and were recognized as the Allied Big Four in the declaration by United Nations. Along with the other three great powers, China was one of the four major allies of World War II, and was later considered one of the primary victors in the war. After the surrender of Japan in 1945, Taiwan, including the pescadores, was returned to Chinese control. China emerged victorious but war-ravaged and financially drained. The continued distrust between the Kuomintang and the Communists led to the resumption of civil war. In 1947, constitutional rule was established, but because of the ongoing unrest, many provisions of the ROC Constitution were never implemented in mainland China. People's Republic of China. Major combat in the Chinese Civil War ended in 1949 with the Communist Party in control of most of mainland China, and the Kuomintang retreating offshore, reducing the ROC's territory to only Taiwan, Hainan, and the surrounding islands. On the 1st of October 1949, Communist Party Chairman Mao Zedong proclaimed the establishment of the People's Republic of China. In 1950, the People's Liberation Army succeeded in capturing Hainan from the ROC and incorporating Tibet. However, remaining nationalist forces continued to wage an insurgency in western China throughout the 1950s. Mao's regime consolidated its popularity among the peasants through the land reform, with between 1 and 2 million landlords executed. Under its leadership, China developed an independent industrial system and its own nuclear weapons. The Chinese population almost doubled from around 550 million to over 900 million. However, Mao's Great Leap Forward, a large-scale economic and social reform project, resulted in an estimated 45 million deaths between 1958 and 1961, mostly from starvation. In 1966, Mao and his allies launched the Cultural Revolution, sparking a decade of political recrimination and social upheaval which lasted until Mao's death in 1976. In October 1971, the PRC replaced the Republic of China in the United Nations, and took its seat as a permanent member of the Security Council. In 1976, Mao died. The Gang of Four was quickly arrested and held responsible for the excesses of the Cultural Revolution. In 1978, Deng Xiaoping took power and instituted significant economic reforms. The Communist Party loosened governmental control over citizens' personal lives, and the communes were gradually disbanded in favor of private land leases. This marked China's transition from a planned economy to a mixed economy with an increasingly open market environment. China adopted its current constitution on the 4th of December 1982. In 1989, the violent suppression of student protests in Tiananmen Square brought condemnation and sanctions against the Chinese government from various countries. Jiang Zemin, Li Peng and Zhou Rongji led the nation in the 1990s. Under their administration, China's economic performance pulled an estimated 150 million peasants out of poverty and sustained an average annual gross domestic product growth rate of 11.2%. The country formally joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, and maintained its high rate of economic growth under Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao's leadership in the 2000s. However, rapid growth also severely impacted the country's resources and environment, and caused major social displacement. Living standards continued to improve rapidly despite the late 2000s recession, but centralized political control remained tight. Preparations for a decadal Communist Party leadership change in 2012 were marked by factional disputes and political scandals. During China's 18th National Communist Party Congress in November 2012, Hu Jintao was replaced as General Secretary of the Communist Party by Xi Jinping. Under Xi, the Chinese government began large-scale efforts to reform its economy, which has suffered from structural instabilities and slowing growth. The Xi administration also announced major reforms to the one-child policy and prison system,